At my wedding, my dad smiled and said, "We're passing the car his parents gave you over to your sister." My sister Brooke laughed and added, "Relax. It's just a car." My groom just looked at him and said, "No." The word cut through the polite chatter of the art gallery. The music, the clinking glasses, the curated sophistication, it all just seemed to stop. My father Richard was beaming, holding his champagne flute high, as if he'd just offered a perfectly reasonable, generous toast. My mother Melissa stood beside him, nodding in agreement, her smile tight and practiced. Brooke, my 25-year-old sister, just shrugged her influencer smile perfectly in place. She looked genuinely baffled that I wasn't thanking them for their practical decision. Logan, my husband, didn't raise his voice. He didn't look angry. He just calmly placed his champagne glass on a passing tray. The gesture was so quiet, so deliberate, it felt louder than a shout. He looked at my mother. "Melissa," he said, his voice flat and cold. "The gift was from my parents to us. It is not yours to pass over or swap." My mother's smile faltered. She gave a nervous little laugh. "Logan, honey, it's just a practical swap. Brooke needs a reliable car for her brand, and Olivia just works from home." "The discussion is over," Logan said. He wasn't asking. He was informing. He then turned to my sister. Brooke was still trying to hold her smile, but the edges were crumbling, the mask slipping, and Brooke Logan said, his voice unchanging, "The answer is no." I stood there, my hand still linked in his. I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. This was my wedding, and they had chosen this moment, surrounded by my new in-laws and Logan's colleagues, to remind me of my place. In that moment, the anger wasn't loud, it was clinical. This wasn't a family discussion, it was an attempted theft staged in public. This wasn't love, it was accounting, and they had just been told their accounts were overdrawn. Logan turned to the stunned wedding planner who was hovering near the DJ booth, pretending to check the floral arrangements. "We're ready for the toasts now," he said, his voice polite, final. The planner, desperate for an escape, nodded quickly and rushed toward the microphone. My family, Richard, Melissa, and Brooke, just stood there, marooned in the middle of the room, their smiles finally gone. They weren't shocked by what they'd done. They were shocked that I'd stopped playing along. They were shocked that I had married someone who wouldn't play along either. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. My name is Olivia, and I'm 28 years old. That moment in the art gallery with the string quartet playing softly and my family looking at me with pure, undisguised contempt, it wasn't new. It was just the pattern finally playing out in public. I'm an architectural historian. My work is quiet, detailed, and requires years of research. To my family, it's boring. It's not something you can post on Instagram with a brand sponsorship. It doesn't get you invited to parties. It's invisible work, which made me the invisible daughter. My sister Brooke is 25. She's an influencer. Her life is loud, perfectly curated, and constantly celebrated. She's the golden child, the one whose entire personality is a performance my parents are happy to fund. I was the resilient one. That's the name they give to the child they plan to neglect. The resilient one is the one who won't make a fuss. The resilient one is the one who understands. The resilient one is the one you can steal from, borrow from, and drain, because her resilience means she'll just quietly rebuild herself. For years, I'd been the silent investor in their version of family. I remembered when I was in my final year of my master's program working on my dissertation. My laptop, which I'd had for 6 years, finally died. I called my parents not to ask for money but to ask if they could co-sign a small loan for a new one. My father Richard told me, "We just don't have it, Olivia. Things are tight." The next week, Brooke posted a video on her Instagram story unwrapping a brand new top-of-the-line laptop. The caption read, "My parents are just the best. Finally, I can edit my vlogs properly." When I asked my mother about it, she didn't even blink. "That's different, honey. That's for her career. You can just use the library computers for your little paper." My dissertation. My little paper. Then there was the car. When Brooke was 22, she crashed her car. She'd been texting and driving, but she told my parents it was bad weather. They didn't just co-sign a loan, they bought her a new one outright. When I'd finally saved up enough for a down payment on my own reliable used car, I was a few $100s short. I asked my father if I could borrow the money just until my next paycheck. He sat me down and gave me a 45-minute lecture on financial responsibility. You're 26, Olivia, he said, shaking his head. It's time you learned to be more responsible with your money. This wasn't family, it was a business, and I was the only one paying my dues while Brooke got all the dividends. They didn't just overlook me. They actively used my silence as a resource. My ability to absorb the loss was their collateral. My resilience was the family's emergency fund, the one they drained again and again to make sure Brooke never had to face a single consequence. But they forgot one thing. Historians are trained to do one thing better than anyone else. We research. We find facts. We document everything. The word cut through the polite chatter of the art gallery. The music, the clinking glasses, the curated sophistication, it all just seemed to stop. I see the question in your eyes. I saw it in Logan's eyes for months when we first started dating. Why did you let them? Why did you sit there for so long and just take it? Why didn't you stand up for yourself sooner? What you have to understand is that I wasn't just silent. I was silenced. And I had been keeping records for a very long time. For 28 years, I was the perfect prisoner. I learned to be self-sufficient because I had to be. I learned to be quiet because my voice was never the one they wanted to hear. My silence wasn't weakness, it was a conditioned survival reflex. I was the family's emotional shock absorber. My role was to absorb the conflict, to make peace, to quietly hand over whatever was needed so that the family unit could appear stable and happy. And this is the trap of what I call cruelty normalization. My family's behavior, their treading on my boundaries, their casual theft of my accomplishments and my property, it didn't happen all at once. It was a slow erosion over decades. It started with small things, like my mother telling me to let Brooke have the bigger room. Then it was my father telling me I was overreacting when Brooke ruined my things. Each time I gave in the bar for what was normal moved. Each time I quietly accepted the loss, I was teaching them that I was a resource, not a person. Taking from Olivia wasn't cruel in their minds, it was practical. Why buy Brooke a new laptop when Olivia's was just sitting there? Why let a perfectly good car sit in Olivia's garage when Brooke needed it for her brand? My needs were always theoretical, but Brooke's wants were always an emergency. And that's how it works. That's how a family can stand at a wedding in front of friends and loved ones and attempt to steal a gift from their own daughter. It's not because they are monsters. It's because over 28 years, I had trained them to believe that I didn't matter. We left for our honeymoon the next morning. A quiet drive up the coast. No real plan, just the luxury of open road and each other. For 2 days, it was peaceful. We ate at roadside diners, stayed in a cheap motel with a view of the ocean, and for the first time in months, I felt my shoulders unclench. I felt free. The rest of the wedding was a blur of forced smiles and painful small talk. My parents, Richard and Melissa, played the part of gracious hosts, but they never made eye contact with me again. Brooke disappeared into a crowd of her friends, laughing just a little too loudly. Logan and I left as soon as it was politely possible. We didn't talk about it in the car. We just drove the silence, a heavy shared blanket. We left for our honeymoon the next morning. A quiet drive up the coast. No real plan, just the luxury of open road and each other. For 2 days, it was peaceful. We ate at roadside diners, stayed in a cheap motel with a view of the ocean. And for the first time in months, I felt my shoulders unclench. I felt free. Then on the third morning, my phone exploded. It wasn't just a text, it was a full-scale digital assault. Logan, who was getting coffee, just looked at my screen and said, "What is she doing?" Brooke had posted an Instagram story. It wasn't a subtle jab. It was a tearful, multi-part performance. The first slide was her face blotchy mascara running sitting in her old beat-up car. The check engine light was clearly visible on the dash. The text over the video read, "So heartbroken right now. Some of you know my sister got married this weekend. I was so happy for her, but I guess some people just don't know how to share the good fortune." The next slide was her still crying. "My car is on its last legs. I'm just trying to build my career and my family. Well, let's just say they made it clear. They won't help me. They have everything, and they just watched me struggle." Then came the final slide. A link to a fundraiser. "Help me get a reliable car so I can keep my career. My family won't." The goal she'd set was for $16,000. $16,000. For a reliable car, It was a number so absurd, so blatantly greedy, it took my breath away. It was more than my entire salary for my first year out of grad school. She's not just playing the victim, Logan said, his voice hard. She's committing fraud. Before I could even process that, the family group chat lit up. My mother, Melissa, was first. Olivia, I am getting calls from everyone. Your sister is being humiliated online by her followers. They're asking why we'd let her suffer. You need to fix this. This has gone too far. Fix this. My father, Richard, chimed in seconds later. You've created a terrible mess, Olivia. Logan's parents are calling us asking why our daughter is begging for money online. You've embarrassed this entire family. Give Brooke the car, and this all goes away. Now. Not one message asking Brooke, why are you lying? Not one message saying $16,000 is insane. No. The family consensus was immediate. Brooke was the victim, I was the problem. My refusal to hand over my property was the source of their embarrassment. I looked at Logan. They're not even trying to hide it. They're demanding I pay the ransom to stop the smear campaign. Of course they are, he said, scrolling through the fundraiser page. Look at this. She's raised $36. 2 donations from Anonymous. It's not working. It doesn't matter, I said. The damage is done. Everyone they know thinks I'm the monster who refused to help my struggling sister. They had taken their humiliation at the wedding and weaponized it. They were trying to control the narrative to paint me as the cruel, withholding sister so that their actions at the wedding would seem justified. It was a public, coordinated attack. And it was brilliant in its own toxic way. I looked at the $36. I looked at my mother's text demanding I fix this. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. The emotional part of me, the part that had been grieving for 2 days, just switched off. This wasn't a family fight anymore. This was a public, fraudulent attack on our reputation. My mother thought I would cave. My sister thought I would cry. They were so used to me being the resilient one that they'd already planned out my next move. I would apologize, I would feel guilty, and I would give them the car just to make the noise stop. But they forgot what I do for a living. I'm an architectural historian. I don't just look at old buildings. I find facts. I dig through archives. I cross-reference sources. I uncover the truth that's been buried under layers of nonsense and lies. I research. I document. And then I present my evidence. They thought I was just the quiet, boring daughter who read old books. They forgot that my entire career is based on methodical, clinical, irrefutable proof. They wanted to play this online. Fine. But I wasn't playing their game. I was playing mine. I turned to Logan. The anger in his eyes was hot, but mine was cold. They're accusing us of abandoning her in a time of need, I said. He nodded. It's libel, Olivia. We could send a cease and desist. No, I said. A legal letter is private. They made this public. We need to respond publicly. It's time we show everyone what need really looks like. He watched me, a slow smile spreading across his face. What are you thinking? They're running a smear campaign based on a lie, I said. So we're going to counter it with the truth. My mother's version of family meant the truth was whatever she decided it was. My version meant the truth was simply what happened. This wasn't a family drama. This was a public relations war. And they were amateurs. They were all emotion. No evidence. I had nothing but evidence. I walked over to our laptop and opened my email. I didn't have to search for the file. I had it ready. What's that? Logan asked, looking over my shoulder. It's the email you sent to Brooke. Last week, I said. My fingers didn't shake. My breath was even. I felt a strange, cold calm settle over me. The historian in me was taking over. I wasn't the grieving daughter anymore. I was a researcher, and I was about to publish my findings. I opened my email outbox, found the draft I'd saved, and clicked reply all to my family's group chat, but I added a new address to the to line. My sisters. I went to Brooke's tearful fundraiser post. It was a masterpiece of manipulation. The comment section was a flood of sympathy for her, and vitriol for me. Your sister is a monster, Brooke. How could she be so cruel? Sending you $20, sweetie. It's not much, but I hope it helps. This is what's wrong with rich people. Her new husband is probably the one making her do it. Disgusting. I read comment after comment, feeling that cold clinical calm solidifying into something like steel. They had made this public. They had lied. They had tried to paint me as the villain to extort a luxury car from me. I didn't argue with any of the comments. I didn't send a private message. I just scrolled to the bottom and left a single public comment of my own. I wrote, "Brooke, I'm confused by your emergency. You claim you have no way to get a safe car. Attached is the screenshot of the email Logan sent you last week, the one where he offered to pay the full 3-year lease on a brand new car for you so you'd be safe. Your exact words were, 'Thanks, but no. I'd rather just have Olivia's SUV.' This isn't about need, Brooke. It's about want. You don't need a car, you just wanted mine." I hit post, and the internet exploded. For the first few minutes, there was a stunned silence. My comment just sat there. Then the likes on my comment started to climb. 100, 500, 1,000. Then the replies shifted. "Wait, what? She was offered a new car and turned it down. I've been scammed, I want my $20 back. Brooke is a fraud, she's lying to everyone. Did you see the email screenshot? It's real. The sister and her husband offered to lease her a new car." The narrative didn't just flip, it shattered. My single comment, my simple piece of evidence, had completely detonated their story. The pity party turned into an angry mob. People weren't just asking for their money back. They were actively reporting Brooke's fundraiser for fraud. The comments on her original post went from "You're so brave, sweetie" to "You're a liar and a thief." Within an hour, the fundraiser link was dead. An admin note appeared. "This fundraiser has been suspended for violating our terms of service." An hour after that, I went to check Brooke's Instagram profile again. A blank screen loaded. "User not found." She hadn't just deleted the posts. She had deleted her entire account. Her whole career, her thousands of followers, her curated life, gone. Wiped from the internet in an afternoon because she couldn't stand the truth. I looked at Logan. He was watching me, not the screen. "You okay?" he asked. I set my phone down. The constant buzzing finally stopped. "I think so," I said. "I think I'm finally okay." This wasn't revenge. This was an archive. This was a correction to the public record. My sister had tried to publish a lie, and as a historian, I had simply provided a citation. That night, the peace was shattered by a pounding on our apartment door. Not a polite knock. A frantic, desperate banging. Logan and I looked at each other. He didn't even have to ask. I knew who it was. I looked through the peephole. My mother, Melissa, stood in the hallway, her face blotchy and ravaged. She wasn't the polished, put-together host from the wedding. She looked like she'd been crying for hours. I opened the door, but I kept the security chain engaged. "Olivia, thank God," she gasped, pushing against the door. "Let me in. You have to fix this." "Fix what, Mom?" I asked, my voice as calm as I felt. "You've ruined her. You've ruined Brooke," she sobbed, her hand gripping the edge of the door. "Her sponsors are dropping her, the companies. They're calling her a fraud. She's lost everything. You have to take the comment down. You have to tell everyone. It was a misunderstanding, a joke." I just looked at her. I waited for an apology. I waited for her to say, "What Brooke did was wrong," or "I'm so sorry we put you in that position." But it never came. She wasn't crying because she was sorry. She wasn't crying because her daughter had been publicly humiliated at her own wedding. She was crying because the golden child, the one she'd propped up our entire lives, was finally facing a consequence. She only cared about the fallout, not the offense. "I didn't destroy her career, Mom," I said, my voice flat. "Her lies did." "Please, Olivia," she begged, her voice dropping to a desperate whisper. "We're family. She's your sister. You can't just let this happen to her. You have to fix this." "No," I said. "I'm not fixing it. I'm not the resilient one anymore. I'm not the family janitor who cleans up everyone else's mess." Her face shifted from desperation to that familiar cold anger. "You will regret this, Olivia. You are tearing this family apart." This family was already torn, I said. You just made sure everyone could finally see the seams. I closed the door. She pounded on it again, screaming my name, but I didn't answer. I leaned my head against the wood, listening to the muffled sounds of her rage, and I felt nothing. Not guilt. Not sadness. Just the quiet, hollow echo of an ending. The next day, Logan and I changed the locks. I blocked Richard, Melissa, and Brooke on my phone. The silence that followed was heavy, but it was peaceful. I thought about what it meant. To let go of bloodline. We're taught that family is forever, that blood is the one bond you can't break. But that belief is a weapon. It's the leverage toxic people use to keep you in your place. They count on your loyalty. They count on the guilt they've programmed into you. They believe that family gives them a free pass to hurt you again and again, knowing you'll always come back. But the final, most painful, and most liberating realization is that family is not an unconditional excuse for abuse. True courage isn't found in enduring mistreatment. It's found in the moment you decide your own peace is more important than their comfort. Cutting them off wasn't an act of cruelty. It was an act of self-preservation. It was the ultimate act of finding myself. I was finally completely free. We heard through Logan's parents that Brooke had lost her main sponsorships. The influencer career built on a foundation of lies and entitlement had crumbled. She was forced to get a regular 9-to-5 job in marketing. Have you ever had to choose between your family and your sanity? Have you ever been the resilient one who was finally pushed too far? Share your story in the comments below.